people started leaving, sales dropped for no reason. And I remember just being in that boat, like waking up in the night, cold sweats, like, I don't know how to solve this. Whenever you lose somebody from a business, no matter how important they are, no matter how many years they've been with you, no matter how much you think that there's no way you can ever replace them, something better always comes out of it.
What do you feel like the future looks like for you in your entrepreneurial journey?
Is creating the system, creating the process, and then kind of giving that to somebody to run. And it just works like a little dream. So it's almost like building a machine, something, and giving it away. And I think that is the magic in business as well.
100%. We could do a SWOT analysis of each other.
I think your biggest weakness from my perspective is...
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back for another game of the 6 rounds on the Blueprint podcast. Today, I have a very special guest. Today's guest has been a long-standing friend and business associate of mine. He has been on Property Entrepreneur for 7 years. He was one of the first people to ever start a business from scratch, never had a business before Property Entrepreneur, start it, systemize it, scale it, and then actually sell it, and then step down to being semi-retired, running a lovely little boutique business called The Ultimate FD. And today, it's my pleasure to welcome to 6 rounds, Mr. Joshua Keegan. How are we doing, Josh?
Very, very well. Nervous and excited at the same time to be here.
I'm a bit nervous, but it's like excited nervous, so I'm looking forward to it. Right, 6 rounds. We know what the rules are. 3 topics that Josh has, 3 topics that I have. Neither of us know what they are. Josh, you're up first.
Topic number 1 is hard sells. So what are the things that you know are so valuable to entrepreneurs or so important to entrepreneurs, but you really have a tough time kind of getting it through to them that this is 100% what they need in their business. But when they actually finally do it and take the plunge, they can't imagine their life or their business without these things in place.
Well, obviously, I'm going to throw you under the bus with one of these.
Yeah, I thought you would.
So initially, I would say one of my incubator businesses approached me recently and said that it takes courage to trust your mentor. And what he meant was, as a young gun, it's very easy for him to ask. He pays for my advice. He has me on his board. He in theory wants my advice. But actually, when I tell him it, and it's completely different to either what he thinks or what he wants to do, it takes courage for him to override his own mindset to actually do it. It takes courage to not do what you want to do and do it. So I'd say that's a good mindset for everyone listening. It's a very, very big difference knowing what to do and actually doing it. One, which there's people on Property Entrepreneur who've been on 2 or 3 years, still stand up each year and haven't done it, which is the one you were guilty of, is getting a PA. So as soon as your hourly rate is above £10, £12, £15 an hour, without a doubt, you should have a PA. And what was your experience with that? I said to you, get a PA, and it took you 3 or 4 years to actually do it. And what was it like when you actually did it?
Well, so I was thinking about the answer to my own question to you and what are the kind of things that I would say. And the second one is definitely an assistant or a personal assistant or somebody that you can pay and leverage tasks to. And I still see people don't do it. Obviously, as my role at host on the program, we push people down this route to like really take action to make this happen. You recruit someone in the Philippines now for $4 or $5 an hour. So if you still don't see your rate as being more than $4 or $5 an hour as an entrepreneur, that there's a problem. Like, you really need to consider like why you're in business and what it is you're doing. But my experience of it was I couldn't afford it. Like I thought I couldn't afford it. I thought we're not making enough money in business at the moment. How can I find £200, £300, £1,000 a month to then pay somebody to do work that I'm doing myself? And I guess there's an element of laziness there as well. You think it's just me being lazy. Like, why should I, what am I going to do with my time if I get rid of 3 hours a day of work that I'm doing to somebody else? So that was my experience of it. And I think kind of the flip side of then putting that in practice is the mindset I have now is you can't afford not to have it, because it doesn't take long for you to start seeing. Well, actually, it does take a while. It does take 3, 6, 9 months for you to start seeing that the long-term value you're creating as a result of the compound effect of not having this 2 or 3 hours of admin work a day. Like, when you start compounding that time, when you start flipping that to doing deals or bringing on new clients or inventing new products or scaling a company, the reward from that is 1,000 times the cost of actually having that person in place. But it's just that whole thing. It just takes time to see that and experience that.
I think that's it. It's the risk and reward element. You know, the risk associated with doing something and the perceived reward that you might actually get, and having the confidence in that. I was thinking about this yesterday actually, and I was thinking if I stand up at Property Entrepreneur and say, or anywhere, any business event or in any business environment, and said, if I could give you an extra day a week to run your business, who could make more money? And everyone would put their hand up. And it's like, right, who thinks they could make more than £50 in that day? Who thinks they can make more than £100 in that day? The reality is, if you had a day, you could probably make 100, 500, some of us 10, 50, £100,000. And then you compare that opportunity with the cost, you know, the opportunity cost of not doing it, then yeah, that is just an absolute no-brainer. So that would be one, is getting an assistant in.
On that though, I think I was thinking about this the other day as well. And I think there's so many reasons why people still don't do it. And I think one of the biggest reasons is you have to actively want to delegate stuff. Now, I personally feel almost a bit disgusted when I have a to-do list of stuff I've got to do, which is all jobs I don't want to do. I'm like, and it's all repetitive work. It's like anyone could do it. It's like, it's just entering data onto a spreadsheet or uploading a podcast for download or whatever. And any work like that, I look at it and I go, there's nothing I could think of worse than actually doing that work. But some people, they actually enjoy being busy, and it's like a form of procrastination. And I think other people, they have a false or a belief that if they give it to somebody else, that person can't possibly do the job that they could do. So although you say, yeah, I'll give you an extra day a week, they don't see it as getting an extra day a week. They see it as not getting an extra day a week because they don't know how to delegate. And I think delegation and learning how to create a process around something and to actually then be okay to kind of give that and let somebody run it, I think that's another skill. And I think that that's probably the missing link sometimes, because logically it makes total sense. In reality, like if you don't know how to delegate, it cannot save you a day. It can cost you two as a result of doing it. And
that's that journey you go on. You know, you start off wanting to do everything. You're a control freak. You have to do everything. By the end of your journey, you don't want to do anything. And it's going through those motions. Going back to the topic of like hard sales, what other hard sales? So assistance, delegation is definitely one. I would say health and fitness is like an endless one. Entrepreneurs, what I hear all the time is, I'm too busy to get fit and healthy. I'm too busy to do a body transformation this year. I'm too busy to go to the gym. Well, it's actually a false economy, because when you're not fit, you work, your quality of work and your energy levels are lower. They actually come hand in hand. And if you're going to do a body transformation, you'd probably be best to do it in a peak season of your business. What other like hard sales would you say? Things people just don't get. And when they do, they're like, wow.
Yeah, it's that whole thing of when they get this, it's like, I can't believe I ever considered not having it. I think there's two that I was thinking of on the way up. I think one of them is focus and not having too many projects. And I know I struggle with this. I know you definitely struggle with this. It's like the amount of stuff we take on, but you can say it till you blue in the face. Like, just have one main focus and maybe a couple of smaller focuses, which aren't going to take up too much time and energy. I would talk about Property Entrepreneur 70, 20, 10. Have that one main focus and just focus on that for the next year and push that forward. And it's people don't get it because they think that they can do 5 or 6 different projects. They think they can build 5 or 6 companies at the same time. They think they can be doing big deals and scaling big companies and doing all this stuff at the same time. And all that happens is it sounds good on paper. I had a meeting with somebody yesterday that's kind of probably in that boat where they're doing loads of stuff. And he was reading it off to me and I was like, wow, this sounds amazing. But I know if I actually dug into it and actually looked behind the scenes, it's probably not all it sounds like it's cracked up to be. And actually, it's probably all going to fall apart at some point. If you can just be as an entrepreneur, focus on one main thing, I think that is something that people don't get until they've actually done it. They've finally done it, and then they see the effect of that over years and years of kind of time.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And also, I'm an absolute advocate of that, but also a victim of it. Like, I love the new, not because I've got a spontaneous brain. I love the new, the novel, the exciting. But I take my eye off the ball, and it's not till I'm in the hole that I realise, I've done it again. I've taken way too much on. Now I'm going back for a season of saying no to stuff and stopping doing stuff. So I'd absolutely agree with you on that one.
I think the final one for me, which obviously is a big part of what I do, but I still can't believe that people don't understand it or value it, is just a set of management accounts. So I think if you're running a business and you don't have a detailed set of monthly management accounts for your business, I don't think you're running a business. You're just hoping that it's all going to turn out. You're just turning up every day, pushing forward, making sales. But if you don't know what your profit was last month to the penny, you don't know what your net margin was, your gross margin was, and know your numbers like that, how can you expect to ever kind of scale like a lucrative business, a leveraged business, a business that's got a value or a worth, or a business that pays you every month without fail? So a big one for me is like, and obviously this is a big part of what we do, it's like people don't value it at all. They don't value having numbers in place. They don't value having management accounts. But when you actually have that in place, you actually have information on your company financially. That's another one which I think once somebody's had that, it's like you'll never go back to not wanting it. Like it's just a vital.
I mean, that is the business, isn't it? You know, when people apply for the incubator and things like that, I'm like, right, let me have a look at the business model. And they're like, here's our website, here's our product, here's our 5-year plan. I'm like, none of that matters unless the model actually works. And then people are either without that, they're in one or two traps. They're making money, but a load of it's disappearing. You know, they're not optimizing the margin, they're not managing their costs, the water's flowing out the bottom. So they've got a business and they're thinking, yeah, this is doing okay, but it could be doing world class if they ran the finances properly. Or worse, they're actually slowly going broke. They're living off the bank balance. They're stealing from Paul to pay Peter. And it's a inevitable slow death by 1,000 cuts to the down to the basement.
And it carries such a substantial level of risk that once again, entrepreneurs don't seem to kind of understand or value. It's like the amount of, money you could be leaving on the table from kind of extra profit you could be making, but also the amount of times there's just some sort of underlying systemic cash issue or this black hole of money that you don't realize that you owe to HMRC or to the VAT man or to from your client account, etc. It's a lot of big companies are actually insolvent, but they don't actually know. And I think so once you get that in place, that's a big step to moving forward.
My biggest responsibility and my biggest concern nowadays at my sort of level is allocation of capital. And it's like the idea of not knowing where every big capital event over the next 12 months, deals, tax, corporate, all that sort of stuff. Without knowing that, I would be an absolute nervous wreck. I know that, and I'm concerned about, have I got too much cash around me? Have I not got enough cash around me? And it's just a constant game of playing that. But every level has another devil. Nice. On to the next one. So, SWOT analysis. We could do a SWOT analysis of each other. I've got obviously an advantage because I knew the question was coming. But you're going to be on the hook. So that probably means I'll get more value out of you. So strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of each other. Right, you kick it off.
Well, interestingly, one of my topics, which I won't do now, was going to be called the silver bullet.
Okay.
And it was going to be basically, you've known me for 7 or 8 years, professionally and personally. If you were going to give me that one golden nugget, that piece of advice, which is basically to help me resolve a weakness, or like, this is the thing you need to personally work on because this is the bit you're not good at, or you could take you to the next level. It was going to be like, what's that bit of advice? So it very much ties with this because it's very much strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Strengths, funny.
Me?
Yeah, I think what I've learned, I think there's so much. So we'll start with strengths. Start with the good stuff. You know, that kind of shit sandwich.
Yeah. This is a shit lasagna. There's loads to go around.
Do strengths at the start, strengths at the end, and we'll do the shit in the middle. So strengths, I think. Even coming here today, like I'm a little bit nervous about recording this. Whereas you're laughing, you're relaxed, you're having jokes, and I think you're always like that. Even when I know how much you've got on your plate, very, very, your persona is very chilled and very like, you're always the same from that perspective. Obviously, I think if you commit to anything, like I don't think I've ever seen you not achieve anything you've set out to do. Or maybe once or twice you've gone, you know what, I said I was going to do this. I'm not going to do that for this and this reason because things have changed. Very brilliant leader. There's so many strengths there. I think the audience knows a lot of those strengths. I think there's so many. Weaknesses. This was actually going to be my feedback for you for the silver bullet. So I've actually thought about this one.
Well, it's nice we both came into it with the same frame of mind. Not only that we're happy to have the conversation, we're happy to do it in front of tens of thousands of people.
This one's a bit deep. And I think your biggest weakness from my perspective is I think there's still some sort of deep-rooted void inside of you somewhere. And the reason for that is because I've been listening to your podcast with Akash recently, where you're talking about, I'm doing all this work, but the energy's kind of gone. And I've heard you kind of go on this journey for years, where every single year it's the same thing. It's like, I'm done, I'm finished. Then 3 months later, it's like, I'm going to go for it. And you have all these plans, you get stressed and exhausted. And then at the end of it, I'm done, I'm finished, I'm never doing that again. And I've seen, been on Property Entrepreneur for 7 years now, and I think without a fail, probably every single one of those years, apart from the year you tried to retire, which didn't work very well.
No.
It's been the exact same
extreme,
journey.
yeah.
And I've heard you talk about, it's the reason you almost exhaust yourself and almost kind of don't kind of put yourself into almost like a miserable place because you've got so much on and so much work to do. And that's my term, it might not be yours, is because of, with impressing your dad and getting grades at school and get paid for that and all this kind of stuff. I still feel like there must be something deep down that's like...
Yeah, what do you think it is? I think you bang on the money. Like I ask myself it reasonably frequently.
I don't know what it is. Because I was thinking about that as well. I don't know what it is, but I don't think it's what you think it is so far. Because you've said it's about your father and his expectations. I've heard you say it's to do with being kind of popular at school. I've heard you kind of give a number of reasons for it, but I think when you find that reason, it will help you kind of calm it.
Do you look at anybody else who you think is on a similar journey, who's used maybe high performance and entrepreneurship as a mask, a crutch?
Yeah, but I don't think they complain about it. So I think you've got to a place now where it's not serving.
Am I just being a bitch?
I don't think you're being a bitch. I think so. If you look at Akash,
yeah,
like he doesn't complain about the fact that he's on this journey and that he's kind of lost his energy for it, etc. But he's kind of doing it. I think I just don't think you're kind of happy with it, which I think is the difference. I wonder what that kind of void is and where that is. And that'd be my thing for you. It's like your biggest weakness. I think when you crack what that void is and actually work out what is that thing that's actually driving you forward and forcing you to do this work that you don't necessarily always enjoy and forcing you into this place of uncomfort and burnout and styes and all these things that you don't actually really like, I think that would be massive for you. I think that will like properly change the game because you'll be content doing what you're doing rather than pushing yourself forward.
I genuinely think you're absolutely bang on the money. And I actually saw a thing the other day about North Star. When you have this North Star, it makes all the suffering worthwhile. You've got kids. I'm sure there's a huge sacrifice and huge stress and everything else that comes with it. But it doesn't matter because you've got 2 kids that are your children and your family's going to grow up. And for my first 10 years, I had that North Star. And I think one is, I accomplished it. So then it disappeared. But also it was an anticlimax. It was a bit of a thing. But I'm with you. I think often about my journey of... Also, I had a passing thought the other day I might be bipolar. Because I can have like a couple of days where I'm like, oh, I'm loving this, I'm in it. And I can just, at one point, just be like, what am I doing? Like, it can be very much a roller coaster ride, but it's not a new thing. And I definitely don't think I'm bipolar.
What prompts that shift from I'm loving this to you saying, what am I doing?
When I'm doing what I need to do. Like, my work ethic is probably my highest value. And when I'm doing what I know I need to do, I'm in the flow. I feel good. And it can be anything. If I knew I had to mow the lawn or take the bins out, it would make me happy. If I'm doing that, if I know I've got to do something and I'm not doing it, that's what creates my anxiety, stress. And yeah, I think I'm addicted to we might have a topic we'll come back to. We'll move on from there. So I really appreciate the compliment and I really appreciate the appraisal on the weakness because I'd be inclined to agree. For you, I would say strengths. I think you're becoming a very strong speaker. I genuinely enjoy listening to you speak. I think your style, your delivery, the tonality and what comes with it is good. I put sense of humour as well. I find your sense of humour really funny because it's like, some people don't get our sense. A lot of my sense of humour, sometimes they don't laugh because they don't know if it was supposed to be a joke or not. And your like pass away comments, I always clock them and there's times in our WhatsApp groups where I think about messaging you because I'm like, one of us is going to respond to it. And I just think, I just love your sense of humour. I think it's banging. And then I would say bear on a unicycle. When we talk about the Ikigai, and for those listening that have never heard of like the Ikigai or the what do you call it when they meet in the middle? Not bisection, where 2 things meet. So, for example, mine is probably property and entrepreneurship, property entrepreneur. I think the bisection you've got, I forget what the word is, which is basically if you saw somebody on a unicycle, you'd be impressed. Or you'd be interested. If you saw a bear, you'd be interested. If you saw a bear on a unicycle, you would be amazed. I would say your strength is there's very few people who came from a finance background as a fully qualified accountant, then did the whole entrepreneurial journey of building a business start to finish, and now with that academic expertise as an accountant and a practitioner's experience of being an entrepreneur, I think there's very few people who occupy that space. And the value that you can use strategically there on the businesses you build, the business, the training you deliver on Property Entrepreneur, the services you offer under Ultimate FD, there's very few. I've never met another accountant who understands how an entrepreneurial business works, business modeling, forecasting, commercial balance, sweet spots. So I think that's definitely, they would be my biggest strengths for you.
Thank you.
And I would say weaknesses is probably, and these are more commercial than they are personal, I would say is like your profile and your audience size. Ultimate FD is like, a good few years established now, and it's always been oversubscribed. But I feel like if you had a bigger audience and a further reach, either the business could get bigger, but I don't think that would be my advice, or the client profiles would increase. And it's funny that we've said this, because in the last few weeks, we've had some significant step changes with the businesses that, you've started to see coming through. But I would say weakness is you've got a world-class position and expertise, and the return on investment that clients get is through the roof consistently. The problem, I think, is it's not getting that reach, and I think that is a weakness of really making the most of it without going crazy.
What about weaknesses from a personal, more of like a behavioural perspective?
Probably like urge control. Like I think maybe urge control. I think some of the stuff that I used to have, I see in you a lot. Whether it's about you still not drinking. You don't drink now, do you? Or rarely, yeah. So like food, in and out of the gym. My perception, which might be off, is I used to be 100% in or 100% out, and it depends which sort of week or month I speak to you. You're either doing CrossFit 3 or 4 times a week, or you're not. I don't know if that's a fair perception. Is that right?
No, actually, very inaccurate now. So I got a PT about 7 months ago, and he was like, "What do you want to achieve? Do you want to get bigger? Do you want to do this?" I went, all I want to do is get consistent. And since that, my training has been at least 4 hours a week normally, like every single week, and then nutrition being totally on point. And I with all of this though, like I think I've got to, because obviously we're doing the cut at the moment, and it's like I've lost. So since that 7 months, I've before starting the cut group, I was at 86.6 kilograms, and now I'm at 82 point whatever it was, roughly 82 kilograms. And my objective was to lose that weight and get to sub 80 very steadily, and using like 80-20, and like really just not give myself food issues, not get into that place where I'm dieting, because I know what happens at the other side of that. But just to really slowly and steadily just work my way through it, just by being really consistent. And actually, the last 6 or 7 months, I've basically, apart from when I had a baby, so I had 4 weeks of just working out from home, but training has been like absolutely immaculate and on point, eating enough protein, recovering properly, sleeping well.
That's spot on.
So
in which case, that was why I didn't raise it. I genuinely, personally, I can't, either I'm not up to speed enough with what's going on, clearly, based on my feedback I've just given there, or genuinely, the biggest sort of things that triggered for me were professionally. Conscious of time, opportunities and threats for me.
Opportunities.
I suppose you sort of alluded to one, finding figuring out what's going on.
Yeah, I think so. I think an opportunity for you would be to probably focus on a few less things, but you've alluded to that as well. I can't even imagine waking up and having the amount of stuff that's going on that's on your plate, and like then, and I thought, oh, he's cool with it, but then hearing like you talk on podcasts recently and having some personal conversation, I know that now you're realizing that you've got loads of stuff going on. I think that level it up. Threats. Nothing comes to mind on threats. Nothing comes to mind really from a threat perspective. I mean, you're pretty covered from so many angles.
Nice. I would say opportunities for you, without a doubt, the same thing you were talking about, is just focusing on one thing. It's just sticking with Ultimate FD, sticking with the products you've got, and just slowly making that audience bigger, the clients large. And probably my sentiment would be the opportunity is to keep it small. You've really carved an expertise in this highly leveraged, highly lucrative small business space. And I think it's a case of practice what you preach and keep Ultimate FD small, but just end up working with 7 and 8 figure or 8 and 9 figure businesses rather than 7 and 8 figure businesses. Yeah. And then threats, I would say, but you alluded earlier that again, this might be a moot point, would be maintaining your work and family balance. I actually thought about you this week, and I have started getting rid of some of my stuff. But I thought you're going into campaign season as well, and I just thought I have no idea how you do that with a young family. And I was just thinking the threat would be that you allowed one of them to overrule the other, and the business didn't get what it needs, or the family didn't get what it needs. So interesting around that.
Right.
Hit me.
Rolls Royces and Rolexes.
Yes.
And on the way down, I was listening to our last 6 rounds podcast we did about 15 months ago. And it's not a direct quote, but the quote was along the lines of, I have considered going out and buying myself a Mercedes Maybach, sorry. But I've just thought about it and played around with it. But I think there's much better things than to have 200 grand sitting on my drive. We are 15 months on. We've gone and bought a Rolls Royce, which is now sitting on the drive. And we've bought Rolexes, and we've totally obviously changed from that period about 15 months ago. Let's talk about it. Like, what's happened? Why? And I don't want to hear business reasons, because we can always justify it with, oh yeah, it's good marketing or anything like that. Like, what's actually changing inside of you? How's it feeling now? Let's talk about it.
I think it's a really, really great topic, even just for me to explore, because I think about it often. So what changed? So one thing rationale-wise was I felt like I needed to motivate myself to earn more money. So I started spending more money. And I initially had a driver, then I was going to get a Maybach, then it escalated and I bought a Rolls Royce. And I would say the benefit of it is my watch I absolutely love. I think it suits me. I like it. It gives, I genuinely look at it and think I absolutely love it. And I'm well chuffed I bought it. I'm not off buying APs and stuff now. I'm quite happy with that. It was very easy to get seduced, right?
I don't know what an AP.
I don't know what it stands for.
Is there a watch?
Audemars Pierre. Yeah, it's like the hexagonal one, which is like
cool.
the start at 80 grand rather than like 18 grand.
Cool, okay.
So yeah, it's very easy to get seduced down that, but I'm quite happy parking it. Rolls Royce, love it. I like driving it rather than being driven in it. Being driven in it, I could be driven in anything, as long as it's comfortable, obviously, to work. And I don't drive around. The windows are blacked out. There's no ego piece. It's that. How does it actually make me feel? I would say my self-worth, people might have heard me talk about this before, I think as a high performer, like an ultimate high performer, lots of us, people think we're probably slightly better than we actually are, but we probably think we're slightly less good than we actually are. And that actually works. Works really well. It's very effective in business. I think one thing it has done is when I went to buy my Rolls Royce, and like they initially went to get finance, and they said you need to send over your management accounts, all this blah blah blah. Oh no, basically they fobbed me off. They basically said, yeah, I said, what when do you think the finance will be ready? And this sort of quite ego guy was like, don't jump your guns. That's if you get the finance. And I was like, come on, mate. Like, he was obviously wasn't expecting me to buy a Rolls Royce. And then I sent over 2 months management accounts, said I'll get you the filed ones later today. And he come back about an hour later, said, don't worry, sir, it's absolutely fine. We've put it straight through. And that plus having it and driving it has definitely closed that gap and increased my self-worth. So like when we talk about raising prices, in most cases you want to be raising your prices every year, but lots of people, you look back after 5 years and your prices have tripled, but actually you could have tripled them probably every year if you had more confidence. And I would say my self-value, my perception of my self-value for myself, it has increased. I feel more confident, even like going in the Mercedes garage. When I had my watch before I got the Rolls Royce, for the first time, I've been going to Mercedes for 10 years. For the first time in my life, I walked in there and I didn't feel like I had to explain why I was getting a Mercedes. This is my third Mercedes, or trying to justify why I was qualified to be there. Just by having the watch on, I walked in, I felt more confident, I probably looked more confident. And the woman came rushing over and was like, sort of open conversation.
Do you think she even noticed the watch?
Probably not. It's probably like your energy, isn't it? If you walk in feeling nervous, they probably feel, maybe she did, I don't know.
And do you think everybody has that? Because I definitely have the same experience. Like, even if I was walking into a Volvo garage, I feel like everyone in here thinks I can't buy any of these cars. Do you know what I mean? I definitely have that. And you obviously share it, but do you think everybody has that? What is it?
I don't know. We'd have to ask. I think it's a low ego. Like, I think when your ego is tame, you're not egotistical and you don't think you're better than everyone else. Again, we probably think we're not as good as everyone else. So, there's that closing that gap. I remember my driver was driving me around the Rolls Royce the other day and I said, I forgot my sunglasses. He lent me his sunglasses and they were actual Ray-Bans. So I've never had an actual pair of Ray-Bans. Mine are all like 15 quid from Next. I said, wow, these are actual Ray-Bans. I put it on. I said, now I feel like I've actually made it now. And he started absolutely cracking himself out because obviously to him that sounded like a stupid thing to say. To me, I genuinely felt like, wow, one day I'm going to have a set of Ray-Bans. It's a strange mindset.
You didn't grow up like, you grew up in did you have financial issues when you were a kid?
I had like financial insecurities. So like when my parents got divorced at like 7, I had like a red phone bill on the notice. When I had my hypnosis, that was why I have this work ethic and drive for make money, even though perhaps I don't want it. Was I saw that red phone bill and was like, I need to make money to make sure my mum doesn't get evicted, sort of thing. That was where that came from. But then when I was 21, my mum turned around, which is probably 10 years later, my mum turned around to me and said, why are you working so hard? Why don't you just go and live your life? And I was like, because I need to make money to give to you. And she was like, I don't want your money. And I was like, could have told me that 10 years ago. And fair enough, she's never taken a penny off me. So yeah, it's interesting. I think in review, putting pressure on your finances is quite a good thing every now and again, because last year I had a bit of a spending spree. So new car, new driver, help around the house, things like that. It's just being a lot more loose with the purse strings. Now it makes me quite nervous. So now I'm really starting to optimize my finances, where I'd say previously when everything was like sitting pretty, I wouldn't say it was sloppy, but I now want to get back to that security place. And I don't know if that's driven me to make more or actually it's just made me more secure with it. What's your observations of it?
Observations of it are, well, my interpretation is I'm trying to understand how I feel about it, because I think for years and years I've known Dan that's like, yeah, it's been a big part of your personality. And in the podcast we did 15 months ago, you talk about the fact a big part of your ego is the fact you don't spend money on t-shirts, you don't spend money on this, and this. And obviously now there's been a shift. So seeing you transition, it's been like interesting to kind of...
Interesting is a good word, because sometimes it means beating around the bush. Like what does it, because Adam and I have had a conversation that for me, well, he said it makes him nervous, me talking more openly about making money and doing deals. And I said, I'm glad you said that, because I feel exactly the same. And then just for context for everyone who's listening, I'm still wearing the same t-shirt and the same pair of jeans that I was wearing 15 months ago. So it's like...
I feel really pleased that you've done it, like for you.
Okay, that's good.
Because I feel like you were a bit too far on the end of the spectrum, which was like, you almost like, you made it a big part of your character not to do it. And you almost put yourself into this hole of like, right, I spend £750 a month. I wear £4 t-shirts. And it's like, when you keep saying that, it's like, how do you then transition out of that? And how do you actually kind of enjoy your money? Then I'd say, I know we've had conversations about you doing more holidays and upgrading to business class instead of flying on economy, which was like alien to you for a while. Now you've started to do it. And I think I feel really pleased you've started to kind of move in that direction.
What's your perception of, like, so when you're pleased about it, obviously there's a seismic shift from, especially outbound. Obviously one of our objectives this year is to level up content. The reality is sex sells. And if you tell people you're making a couple of million quid a year, they're much more likely to listen than if you say, I was meditating for 60 minutes this morning in my pajamas. It's like...
Well, the content you've been putting out has been like a level up. It catches my attention.
Okay,
do you know what I mean? I see it, and before... Yeah, but I think you've started polarizing more. So you've started using stuff that's like that one the other day, I hate HMOs. Obviously, everyone's going to look at that and go, what the hell? HMOs won't make you wealthy. Of course, everyone's going to be like interested in that. And
it's all a game, right?
Yeah, you definitely started using more kind of financial elements there. I guess, as a friend and somebody seeing that you've kind of grown so much over the last 7 or 8 years, I guess I just want you to be happy. And I guess there's an element of me that feels so happy you've started to do this kind of stuff and spend your money, which is like so well deserved. But there's an element of me that really worries. It's like, is this just another punt at like trying to find something in all of this? And is it like the right route? And is it just similar to like the void conversation we had, where it's like another go at trying to make these businesses become something that's going to give you that kind of that warmth or that feeling inside? And we only ever do anything to... Michael Singer talks about this quite a lot. Like all we ever do is do stuff to try and quiet our mind. That's all we're ever trying to do. Like when we tidy the house, it's because we think when we're going to have a tidy house, our mind's going to quieten down a bit. when we box for our to-do list, we think that at the end of that day, our mind's going to quieten down a bit. So when we buy a Rolex or a Rolls Royce, we feel like it's going to, in some way, give us a bit of extra peace, whether that's consciously or subconsciously. And I guess that it's not going to do that. But I just think the shift has just been really interesting to watch. And I guess to sum up, I'm extremely happy for you that you're doing it. But I just worry that it's not going to solve the problem or solve a problem.
Yeah, and I think that my last time I did it in 2019 with the supercars and the mansion and stuff, it was just the biggest anticlimax ever. And I would say this time round, there's been a degree of value add. I love my watch, enjoy being driven around in Rolls Royce, love driving the Rolls Royce myself. But the big warning sign to anybody is this whole hedonistic Ferris wheel of life is on the way up. Before we get it, we think it's going to be amazing. The second we get it, the value of it decreases. And you and I had breakfast the other day, and I said, what the biggest learning for me is whatever you do in your life becomes the new normal. And it's that value add is very limited. Like now, just being driven in a Rolls Royce is normal. Putting a Rolex on is normal. And it's like either you appreciate that these things are artificial and they are a new normal, or you get addicted to that new chase of the new thing that doesn't actually exist. So yeah, really, really interesting topic. And really well explored. Next, life, death, and the universe. I think this leads on nicely because I'm intrigued to know what you think, because I'm a very deep thinker, which is probably one of the issues I have. Like I do think sometimes Carol, that I used to see in Sainsbury's working on the self-checkout, who was saying, I'm looking forward to retiring. When you retire in 32 years. And she didn't worry about life. Her life was go to work, pay the bills, have Christmas dinner, 2 weeks holiday a year. And she didn't have that deep thinking. She wasn't sitting there trying to find the meaning of life and like, should I be happy? Should I be challenged? Should I be pushed? Should I be pulled? We've just explored then, perhaps my perception is that you are content and happy and things like that. What is your view on life? What is life? Death? What is death? And the universe? How much time do you spend thinking about that stuff? What does it mean to you? And, show me the way.
Interestingly, I was thinking about this the other day, and what I was thinking about is I'm thinking about it a lot less than I used to. And I think I've got to a place where I feel a lot calmer. I feel a lot more content. I feel far less like I have to do anything. I feel like I know myself a lot better. Like, if you tell me that you get up every day at 4, I assume you do still something like that. It doesn't bother me. Like that would be like, oh, maybe I should get up today at 4. And I'm like, no, I get up at 6, and it works for me to get up at 6. And sometimes I do snooze the alarm, and I'm cool with that. So I think I've definitely shifted into a place where I'm thinking a lot less about what other people are doing. And in terms of like life.
How did you do that? Just to explore it? Because that's definitely one of my issues.
I think it just comes from confidence and just kind of knowing what actually works for you and just trying to switch out the noise. Like, I think there's so much value in experiencing what other people have experienced. So there's so much value in doing a weight cut and understanding what it's like to drop your body weight to whatever kilograms it is. There's so much value in trying out getting up at 5 a.m. every single day and working. There's so much value in getting up at 10 a.m. every single day and seeing what that's like. There's so much value in not drinking alcohol for a year. And I think I've spent a lot of time, particularly the last 3 or 4 years as I got to know myself better, just going to an extreme. So I did 1 year no beer, like literally didn't drink for an entire year. I've had periods where I've got up at 5 a.m. consistently. And I think just over time, I've kind of started to really tune into what actually works. And I think a big thing for me this year is trying to find that middle ground and trying to be consistent. And one of the kind of rules I have now is if I'm not able to do it consistently for months, if not longer, then it's probably not something that should stay. So I used to aim to go to CrossFit probably 4 times a week, plus do football, plus run on a Sunday. So it's like 6 hours of exercise a week. But I could do that for 2 weeks. Then I'd be burnt out, I'd get sick, and I'd have to stop. So now it's like I go to CrossFit 3 times a week, and I do run and football. So it just took an hour out. But all of a sudden, the consistency of that lasts a lot longer. So
let's explore that a little bit. And do you think, because this is like really good insight to get and really valuable conversation for me to have, is do you think are you sort of articulating that it's everyone finding themselves and finding what's important to them, or is that are you sort of professing that would be best suited for most people? That would be a good place to go.
I think everybody has to find out what works for them. The training's a really good example because of the type of training I do. It's like it's an hour and it's extremely vigorous and intense. Like they're ridiculous, some of those workouts, and there are people that go to that gym every day, 6 days a week, and like I try and be around them and think, oh, I wish I could do what they're doing, but I've tried it, and the reality is, it's like, and you even see them, they disappear off the face of the earth for a month, and it's like, where have you gone? It's like they're just knackered. So I think I think you've got to find out what works for you, and I think that's very, very different for everybody. I think you've got to work out what your values are. So I know as well, family is a big value for me, work is a big value for me, and exercise and nutrition is a big value for me. But the overriding value for all of that is just probably feeling good and just feeling energetic and waking up feeling like energized. So that kind of overrides all of those three things. And so I guess the principles are I think going to extremes and trying stuff out is probably a way to go. So
how much of a extremist are you?
Not very anymore, but I like to try. A lot of my friends call me very faddy.
Yeah.
So I'll go vegan for 6 months. So it's very extreme, and then I'll come off from being vegan, but then I go back and my diet has less meat in it, and I've kind of found a new normal. I won't drink for a year, and then I'll go back, and now if I have 1.5 drinks, I'm good once a week, and that's fine. So I think going to extremes is really good, but I only do that to come back to a new normal. I've done what you've done at times, worked from 5 a.m. until 7 p.m. at night, 8 p.m. at night, and
did you enjoy it?
No.
You didn't enjoy it?
No, it's not sustainable.
So that's the thing. I think this is where it's like, when I think, why do I do it? I do it because it makes me feel content. And I'm like, Louisa said to me the other day, obviously we're in championship season, Louisa is mine and Josh's life coach. And I said, how do I not burn out this championship season? How do I stop going from feast and famine? And her answer was, well, why do you think you have to? And I was like, what do you mean? He said, you've been doing this for the 10 years that I've known you. And every year we talk about, we know it's going to come, blah, blah, and I go out there and I break every record that we've ever broken. And then I'm in a exhausted mess at the end of the thing. And I think that I should have avoided that. And her sentiment was like, if you go and break the world record for running a marathon, you don't walk across the finish line with a cup of tea and a drink of Lucozade. You collapse on all fours, and it's what happens to take things to that level. And it's just made me think about, like, especially this summer, is like, I'm not asking myself the big questions about life, about age, about family, although some of them I think I should, specifically family. And I am thinking about them and talking about them. But I think during the summer, I'm in my element. Like, every second of the day is rammed full. And it's not like tonight I'm playing squash with Sav at 5:15. Then we're going out for dinner. And I don't feel any guilt about going out to the gym in the middle of the day or going for lunch, because I know that I'm giving everything what it needs, but it's at full tilt for a short period. And it's like, it's very easy for me to beat myself up and think, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. But it's like, anyone who ever did anything of any significance was put under stress and pressure. And if you want to have the results at the end, there is no silver bullet. So it's like,
I agree, but I think there's probably two elements. One is, what results do you actually want to have at the end? So you've created a portfolio of, a massive portfolio of businesses which all need to have results. So of course that's going to be very, very different to me, where I've got one main focus and the results are probably far less than, my results need to be far less than what yours need to be for it to be a tremendous success. So I think there's one element there, but also I think you can afford to be, I think this isn't, it's going to sound, this word is not like the nicest word to use, but it's quite selfish in that you can afford at the moment to be quite selfish. You can afford to go out there, batter yourself, and get to another side where you can be tired, be exhausted, be kind of dead to the world, and have a few days like that. If I do that, it impacts my relationship with my 2 kids. And I think that's probably the bigger picture for me now. Like when you had that first baby, you instantly lose the ability. Well, you don't lose the ability, you can do it, but it just, what kind of person do you want to be?
And why would you want to, yeah. And Sav had a word with me 2.5 weeks ago. There was a day where I was up working at 4 and I was still working at 7:30 at night, and she basically was just like, what the hell is this? Like, and just read me the right act. I said, do you know what, you're absolutely right. So the next day, finished at 3, took her out for dinner. The next night we went for a walk in the afternoon, and it's like honouring those. And I suppose it's like, it's acknowledging that what I'm not trying to do is talk myself into the fact that I enjoy it. I'm just trying to have an open conversation. And the point about everyone having their own. This is why we do Life by Design on Property Entrepreneur. Every year it changes, kids, marriage, family, whatever. We all have these different things. And when I look at what other people find enjoyable, like I'm debating taking a Monday off, but in my head I'm like, that sacrifice of not working on a Monday, which I actually need to do because I need to get ready for the next leg of summer. Otherwise I probably will slide off the track. But I'm like, there's an opportunity cost of that. But some people could take it off and not even bat an eyelid. Whereas I'll be like, it's quite a challenge for me to take a day off. Whereas other people, it's quite a challenge for them to work a couple of days. They only work 5 hours a week, 10 hours a week. They want to be doing their lifestyle stuff. But for me, I don't enjoy that. I haven't found any satisfaction in jet skiing and, swimming in the sea and stuff like that. It's nice for a holiday. It's nice for a long weekend. But my satisfaction comes from work. And I wonder whether that's an addiction, like an alcoholic will say their satisfaction comes from drinking, or it's just in the same way you like balance, sustainability. It's just the way I live my life. And it's like, Elon Musk, he used to be one of my heroes until I realized he's just suffering. But then I'm like, there's a lot of joy and satisfaction and contentment and engagement and purpose in that journey. But this is very summer conversation. In autumn, I'll be talking about, smelling salts and stuff like that again.
But I don't think as well it needs to be, like Louisa would say, it doesn't need to be black and white. There can be some grey. And I think that's, as entrepreneurs, we always think like that. We think you either have to work Mondays or you've always got Mondays off.
Do you not need like an adrenaline hit?
I really enjoy, what do I enjoy doing? I enjoy doing high value work. I enjoy creative work, and I enjoy doing high quality work. And I like doing it in an environment where it's not so rushed that I can't take my time over it.
Cool. Yeah, it's interesting. I have to have a degree of stress. I have to have a degree of pressure to get things done. If I don't, not that I have to, maybe that's, I feel like I like it. I like the pressure to get stuff done. Otherwise, I'll just procrastinate. Nice one. Last round for you.
So this one is called Rules for Life and Other Dangerous Situations. And what I want to distinguish here is like, what are the rules that you live by? And this is different to habits. So for me, a habit is, you brush your teeth in the morning, you do certain we have a handful of habits on Property Entrepreneur. Rules are more like when you're in like a difficult situation, like for example, you've gone out for dinner, you might have a rule that you only ever eat chicken, salad, and you don't get dessert because you want to make sure you maintain a good physique. Or for example, when you're on holiday, you do a 20-minute workout in the morning every single day, or you always get 15,000 steps. What are the kind of rules you have to kind of manage difficult situations where you're out of your comfort zone, you're out of your kind of natural environment, to kind of stay on track and stay focused and keep the high performance that you want to operate at?
So the ones that aren't habits are all about karma credits. So anyone listening hasn't already bought a copy of Karma Credits, it's a book that I wrote about the way that I've lived my life for probably the last 7 to 10 years religiously. And I would say they are my rules. They're non-negotiables. There's no way I would break them. And the last chapter is called Guilt, which means if you do break them, you acknowledge them and you fix them. I would say they're my core rules that I'd never break. So do the right thing is always doing the right thing. Every single time that I'm in a difficult position, whatever the right thing is to do, despite the fact that it might be against what I want, that would be a key one. And doing the right thing would be in a situation, but also stuff like if I go to throw something in a public bin and it falls on the floor, even if I allow myself to walk a few steps behind, I'm like, I can't do that. That is a wrong thing to do. And I'll go back and pick it up. Not saying hello to somebody in a shop. If I'm like having a bad day, I'm rushed, I need to be on my phone, and I think I'm not going to ask them how their day is. I'm like, I have to do that. I have to stop and ask them how their day is, because to me, it has to be done, and the negative would outweigh the effort that goes into to the positive to actually do it. So I'd say that. Getting up early. The only time I'll ever sleep in is if I've had a really late night, either traveling or drinking. Then that would be, I would actually get up late. And apart from that, I'm always awake, really, really early.
Even on holiday, any environment.
Even more so on holiday. Up, walking the beach, journaling, just sitting there and just being up. It's like seizing the day and just making the most out of every hour. So I wake up early and I go to bed exhausted. Like that is definitely a rule. Not through any reason other than you were talking about consistency earlier. Is like when I'm in something, like we're doing our weight cut at the minute on the board, and like seeing people screw up at the weekends and not coming in on target, I'm like, I don't understand how you can be in a challenge and then allow that to happen. So for me, my rule is like, if I'm in, like I said earlier, there's times when I'm not in, I sign up for something, I'm like, no, that was a bad idea. But whether it's 75 hard or weight cut, I'm just like, the idea of not doing what's required to make something happen is like either alien, or it would make me feel so bad it wouldn't even be a benefit. You know, I just wouldn't do it. So because of that, I tend to eat the same food. I'll eat the same breakfast, same lunch, same dinner with a very small amount of variables just to keep it easy. Wear the same clothes. Like that's not changed for probably 5 years. Black t-shirt, black jeans.
What are your rules around alcohol now? Because I remember for a long time, there was a whole thing around you were quite intrigued and interested to kind of cut it out. But then on a Friday night, it was always like something you used to do to always unwind. But then you weren't quite happy because it used to affect you on a Saturday. Where do you sit with alcohol now?
So I would say it's a really, really good example of my extremism. So like when I'm not drinking, I absolutely love it. Nowadays I don't say I'm never drinking again. Like, you know, oh, this is so great, I'm never drinking again, because I know I'll come back to it. Now I jokingly say I'm not drinking at the minute, but there'll be a come a time when I drink. So at the minute I'm drinking, so I'll drink maybe once or twice a week, and I really enjoy it. Sun's out, barbecue's out, few beers, absolutely loving it. As we get towards the winter months, I'll probably be bored of it, sick of it, and I'll go into another clean stint. Although I'm cutting weight at the minute, so it's that sort of self-limiting. You can't have a load of beer and cut weight. So, you know, that sort of self-polices it. But there's not really any... The only rules I'll have is not to have a hangover. So whether that means I can't go to bed until I've drunk 3 pints of water and a load of vitamin C, or it means I just don't drink enough alcohol to have a hangover, like that would be one, is like not having a hangover, because that I really hate that wasted bit. There'd be some of my rules. What about yours?
So I think stretching after exercise. I know it sounds silly. Never used to do it. Stretch after exercise now. So literally 6 or 7 minutes after every single workout I do. And that's just been absolutely the most game-changing thing I've like literally ever done. I used to think I had DOMs and like, oh, my muscles must be growing. It wasn't. I was just really inflexible.
Yeah.
It was and I couldn't walk after a lot of vigorous exercise. Plan my week. So I know you're a big advocate of, but always making sure week is fully planned out before you get started, mapped out, top 10 in the diary and just locked in, and just generally like my diary's always open and just try and work through and make sure it happens. Always making sure the high value stuff gets done first. I find this one really difficult. So I have like maybe 8 things on my to-do list that day. And it's just really tempting to box tick off the quick wins, get them done. The things like go do a Facebook post or respond to something or send an email or whatever. Reality, you've got these 3 monsters that like every single second you're faffing around with other stuff before you get to them is going to impact the quality and the speed at which you get them done. It's like make sure they're first, not last, even though something I'm really working on, my mind is not good at that. It's like it wants to do the quick, easy stuff first and not the other way around. So I'm just really kind of training myself to do
Just
that.
give you a bit of feedback on that, because I had exactly that. Because last year I took a lot of time off. When I came back this year, it was so easy to do trivial stuff. And also I wanted to be visible because I was back. I wanted to be available, visible, fast response times. And I lost, and also I was training, my weight training was 7 a.m. So I lost that big deep work slot. And I had a life coach for a bit who was a professional Navy SEAL coach, brings people back from off of being Navy SEALs. And she said, the reason you're doing that is you don't value your own work. Well, she said 2 things. One is you don't value your own work. That's why you need to be available, because you think it's more important to deal with other people's work and give people the perception you're busy, not active on your work. And the other thing is dopamine hits. She said, like, when we talk about dopamine hits like sugar, social media, news, WhatsApp, they're these little quick spikes, which is an easy quick hit. Whereas something like a 90-minute piece of work isn't going to give you that hit until the end, but it's more of a slog. And once I got into that and realised you get exactly the same satisfaction, it's just you have to start the work and get into it. It's the same amount of dopamine, just 1 hit rather than like 10.
Yeah, absolutely. And normally you always ring in my head when I'm in that boat. It's like, it's just getting started, which is the hard bit.
Always.
It's just thinking about it, overthinking about it. Other rules would be just making sure always present with kids. Easy said than done. So easy just to switch the TV on, let them watch that, or just to be on your phone while they're faffing around with you, etc. That's a really, really difficult one, but something that it's just another one of those rules in place. Finish the day, that's what I call it. So every single day, making sure that I normally just go out for a walk. It takes no longer than half an hour, but I just go through all my WhatsApps, just respond to everything, and just kind of close it all down. And I don't know if that's I've still not decided whether that's good behavior or bad behavior. It's like WhatsApps generally are pretty noisy and they're kind of low value work, but it's just leaving everyone with everything they need, the comms that they need. It's pushing stuff forward, and I really value when other people are good communicators and they're responding quickly to stuff. I really don't value it when I'm working with somebody or they're a supplier, and yet you wait for days and days to get any responses from them. So I really, really value that, even if it's just I'll come back to you on this tomorrow. And then I'd say probably just literally just completing the day as well. So every day it's just a rule that if I've set myself stuff to do, generally it's done or it's rolled over. Like worse, like really don't want to roll stuff over, but I never just leave anything on that day. It needs to get moved over to be done to the next day or planned in for the rest of the week, so that the week always happens. And then finally, probably just generally like pretty minimal work at weekends. That's kind of a newish one, just kind of keeping off the laptop, off the phone at weekends, and just really just making sure that's just family time and just it literally is just chilled and just relaxed.
Nice. I think they're good rules there. Yeah, spot on. So last but not least, a lot of people listening to this podcast are going to be at the early stages of their journey, and you are one of the few people who's experienced that journey from the beginning, never having had a business ever and starting one, to 7 years later, scaled it, sold it, now showing other people how to make money in their businesses. Over that journey of 7 years, what have you loved? What have you hated? And then also, what do you feel like the future looks like for you in your entrepreneurial journey?
What a question. What have I loved? What have I hated? I think overall, if I look back at the journey, it's been like a journey of love. And I think over time, everyone understands the bits of business that they typically enjoy. And sometimes that is actually doing a part of the business. It could be actually making sales, or it could be actually doing a deal and getting it over the line. But generally, most stuff that I found it's really like got lots of elements to it. And normally there's a part you enjoy and there's lots of elements you don't enjoy. Like doing any kind of property deal, I think there's a small bit that you might enjoy, but then the rest of it's just most deals are just lots of admin and paperwork and contracts and stuff that most people wouldn't really enjoy. So I think the bit I've loved, and the bit I've it took me a long time to realize that I love, is just the element of creating something that really works. And what I mean by that is when there's a problem or something we need to deliver on, or a product or service or something that's in the background, whatever it may be, is creating the system, creating the process, and then kind of giving that to somebody to run. And when that runs well, I can't really believe it. I can't kind of get my head around the fact that now that person is running that part of the business. I don't have to worry about it. They're now doing it. They're doing better than I ever could. And it just works like a little dream. So it's almost like building a machine to somebody and giving it away. And I think that is the magic in business as well, personally.
100%.
Yeah, it's the magic.
I mean, these guys here, so it's taken us 3, maybe 4 months of getting this where we want it to be, management of expectations, quality of production, processes, systems. And yesterday we had our review meeting, and all of the systems are built now, the process, all of that hard work, which has taken, people think you can just turn this stuff on, which has taken us 4 months to create. It will now run in the background. I have no idea how it works. I don't know what's happening on. All I know is I need to turn up, deliver an agenda of content, and then for 365 days of the year, there's 800 posts a month or whatever it is going out, and you just think that's where the value is. If I was doing all that, it would be a 7-day-a-week job, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and it feels so good, doesn't it? To know you can turn up, record a podcast, and know that it's all just being handled.
Well, when you think about set and forget, it literally is that. You set it once, put it in place, and then you forget it. You know, if you installed a part in your boiler or whatever, you put it there and never ever have to go back to it unless it breaks. And it's the same with a system. And that, yeah, without a doubt, that's where the value is. So you've enjoyed that sort of stuff. What have you hated? when you look back and it makes you anxious. Your stomach turns. You can't believe you put yourself through it. What did you hate?
I think the bit that there's probably two things in the kind of 7 or 8 year journey I've been on, which have always the things that kind of resurface their ugly head, and the things that probably cause me stress and probably cause me sleepless nights out of like anything that happens. I think one of them is kind of team members and performance issues. So particularly not when somebody necessarily leaves, but when somebody's performing badly and they're just a bit of a terrorist, as in like they're kind of shaking stuff up, they're not acting how you want, and you've got to go in and deal with that. I think that's just very, very stressful. And I think you go a thick skin to that. And now I find it quite straightforward to have a frank conversation. And
can you remember firing your first person?
Yeah, I remember.
I think I nearly cried when I fired my first person.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely. Like I remember quite a few, and it's just always tears, difficult conversations, and yeah, it's not very pleasant.
How would you feel about doing it now?
Very relaxed. I think it's different now, because now I make sure all the T's are crossed, I's are dotted, expectations are super clear, and like there's nowhere to hide anymore. So it's like, these are the expectations. This is what I said. You've not done this, and this. Either you start doing it, or we're going to have a good different conversation about where things progress. So I find it much easier now.
You're just more pragmatic now, isn't it? It's
exactly.
just facts.
It's
whereas
fact.
In the early days, it's all emotion.
And I think one of the biggest learnings I've ever had is whenever you lose somebody from a business, no matter how important they are, no matter how many years they've been with you, no matter how much you think that there's no way you could ever replace them, something better always comes out of it. And in all the years I've recruited and brought new team members on, something better's always happened from somebody leaving.
100%. There's only one, in having recruited hundreds of people, there's only one person that ever left and was replaced by someone substandard. And then the other person ended up coming back and taking over anyway.
Exactly.
But it's so true.
The only other thing I think have been the bits I've hated is probably cash. So when there's a kind of a cash crisis, cash emergency, like particularly in the first company, we were like 2 or 3 years in, and we basically did a lot of stuff. We grew too quickly, and cash just became a huge challenge and a huge problem. And at the same time, when we were kind of systemic kind of cash issues, of course, everything else started going wrong. So people started leaving, sales dropped for no reason. And I remember just being in that boat, like waking up in the night, cold sweats, like I don't know how to solve this. And cash is probably the only other thing which I wouldn't say I've hated. It's just, if you think about like those dark moments, it's been around team members and cash, I'd say.
Yeah, agreed. It's interesting hearing you speak, because so all of that I can absolutely relate and resonate with. And obviously now, as you get more wise, as long as you're progressing, you learn these things and they stop being problems. An interesting thing, because you talked like 2 or 3 times there about not being able to sleep, sleepless nights, cold sweats. I can't remember ever not having a solid night's sleep. Like I would say I'm very stressed. Like not stressed as in like I'm not enjoying it. I would say I'm under pressure. I'm very like extreme and up against it. But I can't remember once that it's. I'm sure there's been once, but it's not something I suffer from. I go to bed exhausted. I sleep like a baby, and I get up 6, 7 hours, 8 hours later, and it just doesn't. Again, perhaps maybe back in the day it did. It just doesn't. It's strange, isn't it? I would say I'm very pragmatic with business.
I think it was embarrassment. I think it was the idea that we were going to lose all of this. I've spent 4 years or 3 years or so building it. I've got a kind of profile around it. Everyone was saying it was going to be a mistake. And also it was all to do with my qualification. It was all to do with the fact we'd taken our eye off the ball with the numbers. And this is why I'm so passionate about what we do now, because even as a chartered accountant, when you're an entrepreneur scaling busy businesses, keeping your eye on the finances and actually managing them in that environment is a very, very difficult thing to do, even if you know what you're doing, which is, why we create the solution that we now build up for other people. And it's like, I think it was just that whole embarrassment factor that basically we owe HMRC a lot of money that we didn't know. We owe our clients a lot of money that we didn't know. And if this all goes pop now, this is going to be incredibly embarrassing for so many reasons. So I think there's probably a lot of identity kind of issues there above and beyond the actual issue in the business.
Yeah. So that's interesting as well, because we're going like beating around a little bit, but it's like bearing in mind how we compared our sort of trajectories a short while ago, like business is my everything and like all of that, and how, you're actually, you've got a nice balanced life, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like I don't feel like if you lost it all, like touch wood, let's hope we don't, but if you were to lose it all today, like how would you feel?
I feel gutted. Yeah, I feel gutted. I lost it, but that's because I really enjoy it. And I think this is the point I was making with you. It's like genuine at the moment. Work for me is just an absolute pleasure. Really enjoying getting up early. Really enjoying cracking it on. Like the work is just amazing. It's flying out the door. It's high quality. I'm really proud of it. It's all leveraged. It's all working really well. And I very rarely, and for a few years, I've probably not got into that zone that you talk about, where it's like it's becoming a chore. And I think that's what I mean. It's like for me, it's at the moment, work is not a chore, and it's not been a chore for a good amount of time. It's been like an absolute joy. There are days and stressful things, but overall, it's been a joy.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because I often think if I lost it all, obviously, like again, touch wood, and my financial fortress stuff, it would be very hard for me to lose that because I don't have mortgages and stuff like that. But if I lost my businesses, the industry changed, whatever, I do have this sense of like I don't think I would be gutted if it happened through no fault of my own. Of course, it's like I don't feel emotionally connected to it, and it's like. When I sold Multilet, like with the exception of saying goodbye to my legacy team, I walked out of there, closed the doors, handed over the keys, and not once even looked back over my shoulder. And it was like, I didn't think I would be like that, but I'm just very pragmatic. And I feel like, yeah, just disconnected to it. Closing sentiments, the future, like you've nailed the entrepreneurial journey. You're now going on to this next phase of the journey of Ultimate FD. As per my earlier sentiments, you're in a sweet spot now where it's one of those absolute no-brainers. People can spend 1,000 to get 10,000 back. You've got all the opportunities you want. People queuing up to do business with you. All the opportunities you want to take it forward. In the last minute, what is your aspirational plan for the future on your entrepreneurial journey?
Right now, what's in my mind is just scaling this company to be this beautiful boutique finance business, and my biggest objective with it is to make sure it doesn't become like the rest, like these big accountancy firms, these big tax accountancies, which that's where all our business comes from, because they're just not offering the service. They're not able to speak to entrepreneurs, and they don't offer it at an affordable and world-class level. And I think for me, it's keeping that boutique business, making sure that we're really focusing on that kind of those core couple of products that we have, which are the products I made for myself when I messed up, and now we deliver for other people, and just continue just to add value. And it's never going to be this huge company with thousands of clients on our books, which is the trajectory for a lot of kind of finance style and tax accountant based businesses. But it's going to be a kind of small, highly valuable team that, with the main objective and focus, is to continue to actually allow entrepreneurs to finally understand and utilize numbers, which is the key, I believe, to making money, to scaling a valuable business, to creating a lucrative business, to allow you to draw money, to allow you to retire, to allow you to value your hourly rate, to allow you to recruit effectively, to allow you to literally do everything. So I think once you kind of create that foundation for entrepreneurs in their companies from a financial perspective, and we can continue to deliver that and continue to do that for them, longer term for them, it's going to be an incredible growth and trajectory. And I think the only plan I've got at the moment is just to continue to work out how we just do that and continue to add value in the best way we possibly can. That's it.
I think you're bang on the money. And Property Entrepreneur and Ultimate FD are so aligned in that capacity that we just want people to have what we've got. So when we look at people's businesses and they're not delegating, they're not recruiting teams, they're not raising their profile, they're not making money, we just like, it's so easy. Success and failure are very predictable. And whether it's through Property Entrepreneur or Ultimate FD, all the solutions are out there. You just need to pull the trigger.
The feeling you have that you get as an entrepreneur when you've executed the property entrepreneur methodology well, or you've worked with someone like us, or you've just got to a place where your business makes you really good sums of money. It doesn't require much energy or input from you. You're really proud of what it is delivering for you. It becomes far more about the actual money you're making from it. You just feel like this content, happy place that you've made it, and like you've actually made. That's it. That's success, and I think that is what success is. And I think it's more obtainable than people think. Just people are just riding rocket, chasing the wrong things. But if you tune into what's actually important and you get these fundamentals in place, it doesn't take long to actually get there.
Absolutely. Although it took you 7 years and it took me 20. So on that note, Joshua Keegan, I'm FD. Do you want to smash the bell?
Thank
Boom. Nicely done. Well done.